Welcome back. Philip Ittner is still with us. We were talking about, right before we went to break, the fact that the Russians are using grain as both a starvation tool and to bribe countries into effectively helping them. Increasingly, though, while a lot of noise has been played about Severodonetsk and the area around Lysychansk, and the argument that they've suffered immense losses trying to get Severodonetsk for almost no strategic worth, is again another one of sort of like a Mariupol kind of moment for them that boggles the mind of most people who are following this from a strategic military standpoint, that they are just spending ammo and human lives on their side, securing areas that don't give them any strategic benefit. I mean, it's not like they're getting access to roads where they can get supplies to other areas they intend to take. It seems largely ego-based. And, is that what we're really looking at from a standpoint where you have the idea of a true motherland from the Ukrainian side, people actually believing that they want a country where you don't have the kind of legal system where, Griner, the WNBA star, is being tried under, because that's what Russia imposes once they come in, right? That's what comes part and parcel. What they're really fighting against is the colonization of them and the adaptation of a Russian system of governance and judiciary and resource management. That what Russia does. If you want that in your country, say so. I don't know anybody who would. But the Ukrainians are really fighting back against it, not just their natural identity, their existence as a people. Does Griner's story and what's going on, I mean, the Alexei Navalny stuff, does that play into the story around 100%. Ukraine right now?
100%. I mean, the Ukrainians want a proper judiciary.
Right.
That is a huge part of what it is that they're fighting for, and they are trying to clean up their legal system, and they're doing it actually. They're actually doing a pretty good job, from my understanding. They have a ways to go, but they still have they've still been doing quite an awful lot, and it's important to them. And
right.
Look, again, I keep going back to this other point about this whole thing, is that unlike some other countries in, say, Eastern Europe, that kind of glided into their post-war, post-Warsaw Pact situation. I don't mean to be glib about it. Everybody had their issues that they went through, but some more than others. And the fact that these guys are earning their victory, earning their independence,
right,
through the loss of so many of their young people, and such cost in people and treasure, that the Ukrainians I talk to are saying it has to be for something. It has to mean something.
Right.
So there's a lot of talk that, like, when this is all done, we are going to clean house when it comes to corruption. So,
right.
and I have every belief in them that they're going to do that. You can't go through a trauma like this without making it count for something. So
sure.
But yes, I think the legal issue is a big part of it.
Right. So for those of that haven't been following, Brittany Griner, the WNBA star who had 2 capsules of cannabis oil vape cartridges in her luggage, most likely to deal with the fact that she is 6'9", plays basketball for a living, and one of the ways that she probably deals with joint issues and inflammation and the like is cannabis oil. These are not cartridges to get high off of. She's doing, this is medicinal marijuana in its classic form, right? And they not only are charging her with having it, but trafficking in it, like exaggerating this kind of thing. And there's all sorts of racist undertones about her and the fact that she's a married gay woman, and on 100, like, 100%. But basically, they're just playing this up to make it as scary as possible so that they can trade her for the Lord of War.
Victor Boot.
Yeah. So, and I have to say, when I heard this story, Philip, I'm curious what your feeling was. I was like, do it. Who cares? Dude's not gonna. He's not a threat. He's not a mastermind. He's not a sniper who managed to do this stuff. He's not going to have the same connections he did. Effectively, he's useless for their purposes to some degree at this point. Maybe he can make some deals between them and Iran or something, but it's not like there aren't other people that could do it too.
Well, this is when we start to discuss whether or not jail is meant for rehabilitation or punitive,
right?
Because I think there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of families around the world whose loved ones would still be alive today if
Right.
Victor Boot
If it wasn't for this guy, it wasn't around. Right.
flooding the zone with weapons, and many of them illegal against the Geneva Convention. He's a bad guy, and he was the purveyor of an awful lot of death
Right.
around the world. And so I get where you're coming from in terms of like he's not a threat, but he should be punished for his crimes. So I sympathize with Griner completely, 100%. And then also, I believe it's Mercer.
Yep.
The guy who's the Marine who's over there, and
who's been accused of being a spy, right?
Yeah, he's stuck there. I 100% sympathize with the families of those two families, and I sympathize with the people both of them who are sitting in Russian prisons. And I've been to Russian prisons, and they're not something to take lightly. I completely 100% sympathize with them, but you can't play the Russians' game for so many different reasons. One, again, I think Putin needs to be punished for his crimes. But secondly, if you let them do this, they'll just do it again.
Right.
The next time an American transits through Russia, is in Sheremetyevo or one of the other airports around Russia, what's to say they won't grab that person because they know.
Oh, I agree. I think the only thing that saves you from that is that there won't be a next time for all practical purposes under Putin or anything else. Is the idea that, like, look, let's just get the last few out of there because nobody's going there anytime soon. And anybody that does is there. It's not like they weren't warned. This is a totally different thing. She was grabbed right before the war. And she's being, as was the dude they're accusing of spying. These are people that were like kind of lead ups. They were definitely going to be used as pawns, it seems, because they'd already made their decision to do this. So I think anybody else who finds themselves in that situation, then you're talking about a broader issue with an American going abroad and doing some awful on their own and having some level of responsibility for it. That she and Brenner are not in the same category, I don't think, at this point. And like I said, I agree that this guy, in a just world, would probably just be removed from the earth in the most painful way possible. However, I'd rather have her alive than that feeling. And I also think there are other ways to get that guy to have his comeuppance in the future that once she's safe back in America. That would be my thing. Like I don't think this guy's.
I understand that argument. I understand that.
It's the Pol Pot situation. Like Pol Pot died, wealthy and in bed or whatever. That's always a chance you have to. You float when you trade someone like this for other people. It's just a matter of, and again, what's the reason for punishing a guy like that, but that you value human life? And if these human lives are going to be prematurely ended or in danger because, of his existence also, then they go into his death list, I think, if you don't do something about it. So that's my feeling about it. I think that's how it'll end up.
There's not an easy answer to it.
Nope.
I hear your argument. I think there's validity to it. I think we're going to have to agree to disagree, though, because I followed Victor Boot even before he was captured. When I was CBS producer and radio reporter
Yeah.
in Moscow back in the late '90s. He was already on our radar. This guy, and
Yes.
he did. I mean, he did some horrible things.
Yeah.
Created wars for profit, repeatedly,
Mm-hmm.
um, and stoked. Created wars, stoked tensions, flooded zones with weaponry, all so that he could profit. And he's I. This is where the
Yeah.
question is.
Yeah. Right. I know it's like I said I don't
The
I
dude
would not
should be
presume
punished.
it's yes I agree. We are well. We got to take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about more of this stuff. We got more questions. There is a bunch of questions that I have
Yep.
stacked up.
Sure.
I know Johnny Million has
Yeah,
some.
I see him.
So we'll
I see him.
so
I
yeah.
saw a
So
few of
we'll
them.
right. So we'll be back right
get
after
back to
this.
that. Before we
It's the
cut
House
the
Parks.
loggerheads.
Exactly right. It's the House Parks Radio program, mega worldwide. We only have tactical differences. We never have any philosophical or ethical differences. That's how it's done, folks. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the show. Our chat is full of questions for Philip while he's over there. He's live from Kiev right now. What's first up, Johnny Million?
All right. First up from Tim Farrell. Can you please ask Philip what effect winter has on the invasion, especially in the light of Zelensky saying it needs to be over by then?
He didn't say it needs to be over by then. He said he wanted it to be over by then. I think winter. There's a couple of factors about what winter will mean. They're still going to be able to fight in winter, but it will slow down.
Right.
There's a lot of factors when it comes to the changes of seasons and the winter coming in, the cold coming in. I think he's look. I don't want to second guess what President Zelensky is thinking, but it might have something to do with the fact that also, in addition to that the winter is going to cause a strain not here in Ukraine but in Europe. The European Union is going to have to tackle a very cold, potentially very cold winter without the natural gas that they normally rely upon from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to have to find some way to heat their homes in Europe, and that might, that could be a political factor that affects things on the ground here in terms of the war, because Europeans might start to balk at the fact that they're having to suffer through exorbitant costs for heating their houses or going without heating, and that's going to be difficult. So I think that's primarily what Zelensky was looking at. But in terms of the war, they've fought in the winter in the past. They can do it again.
That's right. Let's grab another one, Johnny, while we can.
Okay, so from Connie Kelly, are any Ukrainians trying to go to jobs and live normally while all this is going on?
You broke up a little bit there, Johnny. What's that?
Are any Ukrainians trying to go to jobs and live normally while all this is going on?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. 100%. They're doing the best they can. I spent the afternoon with a Ukrainian friend of mine, who sadly though is the head of a business here, and it's not that he can't go to work and continue to maintain a normal life. It's because his business has dried up because he can't get clients. He has an international client base, and people are not. They're not coming. He runs a school, so they're not coming here to. He runs a language school. People are not coming here, so he has a staff that he has to keep, paying and things like that. People are doing their best to maintain a normal life, and in many ways, many of them are able to maintain it. It's very different on the other side of the river in the actual combat zone. It's also, it's just financially things are difficult because of any number of things. Like I said, the repercussions of being in a war zone. But absolutely, people are doing their very best to try and maintain some form of normalcy, and people are you know, you can adapt. It's amazing what human beings are able to adapt to.
Right. They don't really have a choice, especially when you're talking about the
Right.
fact that they are the breadbasket of Europe, and the whole conversation about grain should let everybody know that there are farmers getting up every day, like farming in the eastern part of the country, like maybe 60 to 100 miles from the front line, trying to plant and
Yeah.
salvage and transport crops, knowing full well that just their grain trucks could be mistakenly or intentionally targeted by Russians, who want to pretend that they are either military or or simply just to stop the food transport. That they're doing that every
Yeah, and
day.
the stoicism of them is amazing. And when I spoke to a farmer down outside of Odessa, and he told me, yeah, about a week ago, there was a Russian missile that got knocked out of the sky by our air defenses, and it came down in our neighboring field, and we all had to run and try and stop it from burning up my neighbor's field. So,
Right.
and he was just nonchalant about it. He was like, yeah, that happened. You know, we did our
Hmm.
best to stop the fire. We saved most of the field. That was his priority. So, you try and live as normal a life as you possibly can.
Right. Yeah, go ahead. Let's see. Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. I'm just gonna let you field them for a minute, Johnny, while I deal with the other chat in here.
Okay.
Because you can just fire away once we get to the end of one of them. Go ahead.
All right, so Ed's 3D Tech is asking if Highmars are changing the calculus.
Yes, they are changing the
Yeah.
calculus. The more of them that they can get in here, the better. There are at least 4. I'm betting there are already significantly more. They are also getting this new air defense system,
Hmm.
which I think the acronym is HAMANS. It's similar to the Patriot, but not the same. Or say the Iron Dome. They're going to get that, and they're desperate to get anti missile air defenses.
Hmm.
It looks like they're going to get them, but the HIMARS, the HIMARS are the ones that are going to be a significant change, because if they're able to actually attack the Russian artillery and outrange them, it's going to be hugely
Yeah.
significant.
It's going to
Right
change
now,
that,
right
and
now
that's
it's an artillery duel.
yeah. It's one of the reasons why the Ukrainians are holding certain supply lines and supply roads more than they are worried about holding towns, because they know they're going to be able to move and position these things and then constantly do this push march starting in August. That seems to be the counteroffensive. I would like to say that. So the Pentagon announced on Friday, and Biden announced this when he was overseas, that we're sending 820 million more in aid to them, and amongst them is these NASAM systems.
NASAMs. I
Yeah,
just looked it up myself,
NASAMs. Yeah. And those are mid to long range air defense systems. They're a huge deal because they keep both the larger unmanned aerial vehicles and the helicopters and jets from Russia out of the territories where they might be able to hit the the howitzers, for example, or any of the other placements, and that's crucial. So once those get in, it saves the Ukrainians from those attacks. So let's we got other questions too. What do we have, Johnny?
We do. Carl Alessi's asking regarding a strategy of reflagging merchant vessels as U.S. ships and escorting them with our Navy. It worked during the Iran-Iraq War. Would it work in and out of Odessa?
No, probably not.
Right.
There's nothing coming out of Odessa at the moment because of not only the blockade itself, but because of the mines. So you would have to clear a corridor for safe passage. You'd have to send in minesweepers, and then you'd set up a safe corridor. The Russians have eyes in the sky. They would not. That no one would fall for that. It's a great idea. Maybe there is. Look, there are many people who are a lot smarter than me when it comes to issues of that nature. But I don't think that we would be fooling anybody if we just changed our flag. It's yeah,
Won't be enough.
they know
Right.
what was up. No.
Yeah. The also just so you know too, um, the
And both
movement
sides have laid mines.
right. Let's grab another question, Johnny, because I know we have a bunch. So
We do.
I
So,
was about to get into a
Honey
rabbit
Kelly
hole.
wants to know, can they get the harvest across the border into Poland? I assume she's talking about wheat.
Mhm.
Yes, that's one of the routes that they're looking at. They're Poland and up to the Baltic. There's another idea of, and not just an idea, but they're trying to implement a way to send it up the river system, up the Danube, for example. There are lots of different options that are being looked at in terms of getting the grain out to market. And they've got a brand new storage facility, storage system. There's new technology that's being implemented here so that the grain storage will not spoil, and they can keep the grain supplies well into winter, well into January, February kind of region. But that's not the problem. The problem isn't that they can't get it to market. Ultimately, they will be able to get it to market. But the problem is if they're not able to sow next year's crop, which
Yeah.
is normally the cycle is you sell, you get you harvest your year's crop, you go to a broker, you give the broker your supplies, the broker then in turn pays you, you go and you start planting next year's crop. And they only have until the end of September. That is about as late as they can go before they can crop the 2023 crop. Before they can plant, if they don't plant it by the end of September, then there will be no 2023 crop,
Right.
and that will be that's when we will know the iceberg is on the horizon, and we're headed towards it. But human beings being resourceful creatures, I suspect we will either supply the Ukrainians and subsidize their 2023 harvest, their crop, or we'll find a way to compensate them for this year's crop, and they can do that process themselves. But one way or the other, it's not this year's crop that's the problem.
Right.
It's next year's crop.
I mean, there's definitely some losses, but they're material. It's I think 0.7% of the world's grain from this particular harvest period has been diminished because of what's going on. Again, you're looking at 3 to 5% possibly next year that would be caused by this, and that's crucial because of the volume of it. Once you're talking about billions of people, and the grain itself, specifically wheat, any diminishment in that, even from weather, is a difficulty, and that's always been an issue. And then you've got, China losing arable land at an incredible clip, so they need food and grain storage because they're facing a starvation issue in a couple of years, anyways. So yeah, absolutely. Let's grab an early break so we can come back.
Okay.
Because I know we have more questions, and if we get into one more, it's going to bring us over into that other thing. So you're listening to the Houseparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT820.com. And, of course, the show is available as an hour-long podcast cut down by our lovely friends at Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network that Steph and Chris, hi, Chris, put this together, and you can absorb it that way. Also, Sexy Liberal shows are coming to Chicago and your area. Go to sexyliberal.com. And I have a live show tomorrow, live streaming from Burbank, from Flappers, for patrons and other folks. So I'm back to doing shows there, and we'll talk more about that later. Okay, we'll be back. Yay! Welcome back. You were listening to the Houseparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Part of our happy ending is the fact that Philip is joining us safely from Kiev right now. We have a bunch more questions for you, but I saw one go by, and we hadn't touched on it yet, which is the how do we counter the impact of the messaging that Russia is using to mess with our political system and our media over here. I think I even saw a reference that I feel like Houseparks, am fighting a one-man war over here about those talking points. And we only yesterday, Julie Davis is posting from Russian Media Monitor that they were using Marjorie Taylor Greene's tweets on the Channel 1 show And then Tucker Carlson is in wherever he's in Brazil right now, saying that the United States arrests political prisoners because of January 6th.
Okay.
Yeah. So those talking points, what I generally do when I see a story, if you get a visceral response from reading a headline, if you go, oh, that just makes me so angry or sad, or double check it, because that's what they're really good at, getting you to elicit an emotional response, because emotions are much easier to manipulate than ideas. So, but there's so many tricks that they play, because they study us, that we are enemy number one for them, and they spend all the time studying every little fault line. And that's why I say what the Russians do is they will find a way to divide us, and they will get in there and burrow in and try to push that divide even farther and farther apart. So if you find yourself looking at your fellow Americans and saying, oh, the heck with them, or that makes me so absolutely livid, furious, sometimes it's completely legitimate, because we have people,
everybody has
a lot
issues.
of people with it. There's some crazy ideas in the United States, but I just be cautious of that, because that's what they do. That's what they do more than anything else. They will find a litmus between two, something that'll divide us, and they will do everything they can to make that divide even wider.
To hit it with a splitting maul. Right.
Yeah, really is.
That's right. So okay, now I got that one introduced. Johnny, grab me another question from the chat, if you would, please.
Sure. Joe Carter wants to know if Phil plans to write a book.
I do plan on writing a book. There's a book and a potential documentary.
All right.
That's been floated out there, and I have never written a book before, so I am nervous about it, but I think it would be a good thing to endeavor. But there has to be peace here first. So we have to get there. We have to get there first, and then I'll look back.
You don't want to do a movie like The Social Network before any of the major stories break.
Right. Exactly.
Go ahead. All right, Johnny. What else do we have?
So Grumpy Cat wants to know if Philip saw the video of a Ukrainian missile that destroyed a Russian arms depot in Popasna in the Luhansk region.
I did see that. Yes, I did see that. I think that might have been Highmars. In fact, I'm pretty darn sure that was Highmars. Because that is not really in the range of a standard weapon. So, earlier somebody asked, are they making a difference? Yes, they absolutely are. I see somebody also asking about Luhansk. It's probably going to fall. It's probably going to fall. But Hal brought up a very good point earlier in this discussion, in that they are making the Ukrainians are making the Russians pay for every single kilometer that they gain, and they're doing that on purpose. They're sapping their mini material. They are making them. They have to pay for every inch that they gain, and all the while the Ukrainians are getting ready for the counteroffensive. So,
there's also a new polling that came out. 89% in polling of Ukrainians, and this would include arguably folks that may have been on the fence initially before the invasion, disagree totally. This is, they have those sliding scale of 5 options. Are you kind of for it? Are you kind of against it? Are you neutral? That are totally against ceding any territory to Russia after this is over, including Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk, the New Republic area. They want everybody out. That is national unity. That 89% in a legitimate poll actually asking people. That's pretty definitive. It's not one of these phony, you know.
They do need a win though. Something
Yeah.
has to happen soon because Snake Island was one way of doing it, but I think, I mean, look, Ukrainians are tired of this war. There's no
Sure.
two ways around it. But they're not going to lose their will to fight because this is an existential threat for them. The Russians have made it very clear that they don't just want to colonize this country, hence my flag. And remember Ukraine is fighting for very much the same thing that we fought about in 1776, the right of self-determination and not to be colonized.
Mm-hmm.
They know that if they lose this fight, that the Russians want to destroy the concept of a land called Ukraine,
Right.
And subjugate it back into just being another tribe of Slavs under the thumb of Moscow.
Russia has literally Putin's the Russian embassy in Jakarta, I think, sent this out a message about what the purpose of the war in Ukraine is, which is they say it's going according to plan, and the plan involves 10 years of war.
Yeah.
Not just Ukraine, like Ukraine's part of it, but the next decade is about Russian wars of aggression in the previously held Soviet territories. That's the plan. The special operation, the reason they're calling it a special operation in Ukraine is not just because they're idiots and it's a joke, but also because they want you to think of it, or the Russians to think of it, as a minor aspect of the greater activity that they're going to take place, because all of these are going to be special military operations to reclaim territory in line with the Peter the Great nonsense that Putin was talking about a couple of weeks ago. That that the war with Sweden was him taking back territory that was already ours. It was not claiming territories that was somebody else's. That's why they're calling, one of the other reasons why they call it a special military operation, because they're just taking back land that they believe is already theirs. 10 years, to quote Jeremy Piven in Grosse Pointe Blank. 10 years.
Yeah, no, they are openly getting back to the point where they are saying that they want to be the dominant power on the planet, basically.
Yeah.
That they keep banging on about we don't want a unipolar world, which is what they think, a post-Cold War America was this unipolar, and they said, oh, that's terrible, that's awful.
This also didn't exist, and it's a cartoon. Right.
Yeah, they're also all for it if they're the ones that are the unipolar power. They took a good game about multipolar world because that lets them get involved. But if you listen to many
Listen what they say,
huge
right?
sectors of Russia themselves that say that we are a special people, that we are a unique and special world power,
right,
and that our way of life is the best way of life, and we should be exporting it.
And by the way, when people there's save the old joke for a second. When there's when everybody talks about China and the China-Russian alliance, one of the reasons why there's a wick that's been lit on the potential for that, where it will blow up in their faces, Wile E. Coyote style, is because the CCP Han Chinese crowd feel the exact same way. They talk about a multipolar world, but what they mean is them in charge. That's always been the story. They've been telling it for the last 12 years in particular, and Russia's been doing the same thing. Before that, they were whispering it. Now they're saying it out loud. And Russia and China supposedly, this multipolar world eventually will pit them against each other in a way that I don't think people in democracies can even comprehend, even in the context of the Iraq War and stuff like that, because it's a totally different scale. What was the joke?
Okay, the quick joke is basically a man immigrates from Russia to Brighton Beach, and he's there for 15 years, and he doesn't learn to say a single word in English, refuses to learn English. His kids come over to see him and say, Dad, what's it like living in America? Have you assimilated yet? And, what do you think? And he said, America's okay, but and they say, why haven't you learned any English? And he said, well, why haven't they learned Russian? I mean,
yes.
I've been here, 15 years, and the Americans still refuse to learn Russian. It's
Right.
very frustrating. You kind of gist of the joke,
Right.
And that's the mentality. That is ultimately the mentality.
Well, it also lines up with the whole idea that what's her name, Maria Awfulness, was saying that it was a wry comment about famine's going to save us, which has now become a rallying cry. A sarcastic statement has literally morphed into a venomous attack on the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
And the fact that they'd be willing to do it.
Right. We're running out of time, and I want to thank you, Philip, for being with us again today, and that you're safe. He's back in Kiev. Yeah, absolutely. At Philip Ittner, at Johnny Million. You don't have to put the 1 on there anymore because we know he's number 1. He doesn't have to tell anybody about it. Nicholas, thank you for the super chat right at the tail end. Thank you guys for your support of the show. I appreciate it more than I have time to tell you sometimes, especially on days like today where I'm ice skating uphill, dealing with tech issues. But we will hopefully, Philip will be able to join us Wednesday on the live stream again to kind of check in midweek on the progress. There's obviously a lot that's going to happen over the month of July as key up for what looks like a giant move in August. It's going to be a very frightful summer in terms of these things. So we will try and keep you guys posted on it as much as possible. Appreciate you guys. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Again, Nicholas Gaming, thank you so much. Where do you stand now on Biden stepping down and letting someone else run? Not happening. Just for the record, to answer your question. We'll see you guys next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.